Good evening, this is Dr. Thomas Klein. I'm coming to you from Raleigh, North Carolina, and this is March the 12th, 2023. So there's a lot going on, and we're sharing it as fast as we can. Today we want to just start off with what's going on in the world, and I saw an interesting photograph that I cut out of our local newspaper. This is a woman volunteering in the school, helping out with her daughter. And there's something interesting about this woman. She has heroin addiction disease. But she got into treatment with what we call medicated assisted treatment, which is the use of Suboxone or a couple of others, but the Suboxone is the main thing. But look what it's done to her life. Now, the problem is there are people in government who think that if you treat somebody with these substances that are prescribed by doctors, that you're just substituting one addiction for the other. Does that look like she's addicted? No. That's very, very ignorant. And we need to stop that. Legislators are not doctors, and they do not know anything about medicines. They do not know anything about medical addiction. Opioid addiction is medical addiction. It's a medical brain disease. It is not a failing of morals. We have two doctors that we have been following that were imprisoned for no practical reason. The federal government is putting doctors in jail based on their view that if you prescribe too much, that's the same thing as being a drug dealer. And they have a law for drug dealers. El Chapo was prosecuted under the law. But what they're saying is that if a doctor prescribes too much, or their patients sell their prescriptions without the knowledge of the doctor, or somebody dies taking the medicine and then takes 3 more drugs. So if a person is stable on 2 medicines that the doctor has prescribed and then takes cocaine, alcohol, and some other illegal drugs and dies, does that make sense? If the patient has been stable on the 2 drugs the doctor prescribed and then adds more and dies, whose fault is that? The government says it's the doctor's fault. He should have never prescribed these evil drugs in the first place. There was a case, another person that we're following who lost a patient that way, and they flew in an expert from Texas, and she testified that if it weren't for the 2 drugs the doctor was prescribing, this person would be alive. That's not true. So both of these guys have been Dr. Stephen Henson and Dr. Smithers have been in prison for 4 years. And Dr. RUAN, R-U-A-N, another doctor who got nailed by the federal prosecutors for non-drug trafficking, he went to the Supreme Court. He had enough money, and the Supreme Court said he got wrongly convicted. And the Supreme Court ruled 9-0, including very conservative justices. 9-0. So 9-0 means that some serious errors took place on the part of the prosecutors. These 2 guys will be released from prison, but guess what? The government's just taking its time. This was June of last year, and here we are 9 months later, and they're still in jail. Do you know what it's like to be in jail. We're going to have them tell their stories about what it's like to be in jail when they get out. It's really horrible. It takes your life away. And whether or not after 4 years their lives can be restored, we don't know. All in the mistake of the government. We've had some news from the VA that the VA is going to stop treating all of its ex-soldiers with pain medicines, and they're going to substitute a special pain medicine called buprenorphine or Suboxone, and they're going to treat everybody with that because they believe that's a safe drug that you don't get addicted to. First of all, it's not true. It's very ignorant. And here are their recommendations at the VA. They printed them out. As one Marine said, gee whiz, the government's going to give us a chance to die again for our country. We recommend against initiation of long-term opioid therapy for chronic pain. After 5,500 years of treating pain with opium products, the VA has suddenly decided they're not going to use them. Based on what? Based on the fact that the CDC and its advisors, the Physicians for Responsible Opioid Prescribing, have developed a thesis that these drugs don't work and they're dangerous. And we're going to be talking about that in subsequent sessions. We've done some polls, and I just thought I'd share them with you. We have been doing this all along, but we're going to add some more. How many of you have had intravenous morphine before surgery? And if you did you fly to the moon with ecstasy on a high? Or just feel relaxed? 4% said they went to the moon. It's possible those people may have a genetic disorder that translates the use of opiates into addictive substances. And it only happens to a few people. As a matter of fact, it happens to, see if we can find it here. It's here somewhere. I know because our producer just glued it together. Well, anyway, getting more and more disorganized here. There it is. Ta-da. Okay, this is a graphic representation of one person in 1,000. That's how many people who take opiates addict. That's one person per 1,000. We have our own calculations on this 1 per 1,000, and we found another reference too. This is what's called the incidence. This is how many people per year addict. Prevalence is how many people are addicted in that year from previous years. So there's 3 to 5 people per 1,000 that are in the addiction pool, and there's 1 per 1,000 that's added every year. So this is what all the police action is about. This is what all the 7 million people that have been taken off their pain medicines is about. Fear of addiction. Of course, addiction is awful, but let's put it in perspective. 1 person per 1,000, that means 999 people who take opiates never addict. Okay, so let's have a couple of our polls. 4% went to the moon, the other just felt relaxed. How many of you who go to the emergency room with a painful condition are denied pain medicines? 87%. How many people are having trouble getting relief of pain for their pets? 2/3. How many of you are having difficulty in getting pain medicines from your dentist after painful procedures? 90%. That means 90% of people with painful extractions are going without pain medicines because of the fear of addiction. All right, of those who did get an opiate at their dentist, how many of them filled the criteria of our addiction rule, which is intent seeking? So how many of the people that went to the dentist started looking for more? That's what happens. You take an opiate, you go to the moon, and you say, I want more of this stuff. So our definition is people who look for more stuff. Nobody did. 100% of people said they were fine. All right, so we're up on 10 minutes, and that's all we have for today. Our next session, we're going to discuss me being the oldest I've ever been. Good night.